25th at 7:30 p.m. Ditch the guesswork. Ben Stevens, Kevin Walsh, James Young, and Tom Vecchio have your NBA draft betting coverage pick by pick, bet by bet, all night long. We got all the insights and expert analysis because betting blind isn't a strategy. Coverage starts at 7:30 p.m. on June 25th, only on SportsGrid.
Oklahoma City now becomes one of 4 NBA teams ever, one of 3 NBA champs ever, to win at least 84 total regular season and postseason games.
It's just the beginning, Ben, and you just look at a team with, these guys at such a young age, and, Chet's got a team option, Ismail Dieng has a team option, Jalen Williams team option, Keyshawn Wallace team option. Hey, man, they're all coming back.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We are seeing unbelievable temperature surges over the past couple days. So I wanted to ask you this question to let the people know, how do we account for that in our handicapping? 2 good pitchers on the mound, but you look at a place like Wrigley Field, let's just say, 20-mile-an-hour winds blowing out, 90-plus degree temperatures. Is it almost like you say to yourself, you just have to fade the environment and not worry about the pitchers, because if we're hitting fly balls, they're going yard?
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
As we know, it's just we enter every year and it's, is this the Ravens' time? Is this Lamar Jackson's turn? Can they get past the Chiefs and all of these other, stalwarts of the AFC? But it's always really about Kansas City when we're talking Baltimore.
This potentially, Adam, as I send it back to you, potentially is a game changer in that you get a very talented quarter at a discount price.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
NBA trades galore, all ahead of Wednesday's draft, plus ESPN acquires an equity stake in the Premier Lacrosse League. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios here in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington, and thank you guys so much for joining us as we are always chatting the biggest stories happening in the business and culture of sports. We've also got former NBA star John Sally on later to talk about tonight's draft and his former team, the Lakers, selling for $10 billion. But first, let's dive right into the shoot-around.
Yeah, and let's start with the NCAA. We'll announce in the coming weeks, Renee, if they're going to expand the teams that will make the men's and women's March Madness tournament from 68 to potentially 76 teams for this upcoming season. This all according to ESPN's Pete Thamel. The NCAA is currently in discussions with their media partners about the expansion. And Renee, the 8 new teams would be the biggest addition to the tournament since 1985.
I know, insane. And they're talking about if the men's tournament expands, the women's tournament will expand by the same amount of teams as well. And also the expansion would possibly begin as soon as the 2025-26 season. But they're still trying to figure out on the media side. I know NCAA President Charlie Baker said there's been ongoing conversations for months around what does that look like on the media side as well with their partnerships, but good conversations allegedly happening. So it feels like we're finally getting some sort of resolution, and this actually is going to happen of an expansion for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting to see what happens there. Let's move to the WNBA. DeWanna Bonner, one of the Indiana Fever's biggest offseason additions, is out the door as she's been waived by the team after not playing for the last 5 games due to personal reasons. Now, in a statement, she thanked the team but said, quote, "I felt the fit did not work out." Now, our Annie Costabile, Renee, says teams are being told not to sign her. This way she can join her fiance, Alyssa Thomas, in Phoenix.
Yeah, and it's interesting because back when the Fever first acquired DeWanna Bonner, the 2-time champion said that she enjoyed conversations with Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell around just the support and feel of the team and thought it was going to be a good fit. But then, as you mentioned, turned out it was not a good fit for the 6-time All-Star. And she also this season has become, at one point, the 3rd highest leading scorer all time in WNBA history. It's hard to think a player like that cannot fit within this talented Fever team, but it makes you wonder what else is going on in Indiana that really made her feel like it wasn't a strong fit. But also, as you mentioned, now that she's been waived, teams have 48 hours to claim her off of waivers. But again, with her fiance in Phoenix, that, of course, along with the Atlanta Dream, are the 2 landing spots she said she wants to go.
Yeah, and she was only averaging about 7 points a game with the Fever. We're also just a couple hours away from Cooper Flagg's entrance into the NBA, as the Mavericks are expected to take the Duke phenom #1 in the draft tonight. Rutgers star Dylan Harper is expected to be second by San Antonio. But Renee, after Harper, nobody knows what's going to happen in the draft, especially at #3 with Philadelphia, and pretty much the rest of the night right after that.
We know the NBA draft is going to bring the heat, and not just because of the heat wave going on right now, but also Cooper Flagg did get a chance. He was at the Empire State Building taking some pictures. We also know that New Balance has mentioned that today is Cooper Flagg Day.
Yep.
So we're seeing all the PR and excitement around him, but also we know that for VJ Edgecombe, he's been up and down at that 3 or 4 option. Apparently did not have a great workout with the Sixers, but he at least worked out. Ace Bailey did not work out with them, and Paul George called him out for it, saying you don't have the position to make those demands right now, but he's the only current U.S. player that's a prospect that has not worked out with a single team. So some interesting nuances that could factor in.
And we've seen a frenzy of trades in this NBA, including Boston shedding a ton of salaries and a big trade happening with Washington as well. So let's dive into that and more in our main event. And let's bring in FOS reporter Colin Salau. Colin, a really busy last 24 hours. Let's start with Boston, essentially saving $230 million in future cap space just off of these trades. What do you sort of make of these moves by Stevens here?
Yeah, Boston knew what they wanted to do this summer with their new owners. They said, let's save a lot of money, but they're also still going to be fairly competitive. Like you said, they're saving somewhere around $240 million just with these two moves. They save in their payroll next season about $28 million, but about $200+ million in just tax savings. And they could still save even more if they decide to trade someone like Sam Hauser, who makes $10 million a year. But even, and Shams has reported, they're getting offers for Jaylen Brown and Derek White. So those might still be on the table, but they still could be a competitive team. That's really what I see, is that especially in an Eastern Conference, you could save some money and still compete. They gave Porzingis to the Hawks. Who knows if the Hawks are definitively better than the Boston Celtics?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, it is interesting as teams are trying to bolster, especially in the East, knowing it's a little bit more wide open. We've got the Celtics that are cutting back on spending, and a team like the Nets that now have a 6th of the picks in the first round with that move in that 3-team trade. What are your thoughts on just how aggressive teams are expected to be today? I know, as you alluded to, Brian Windhorst also mentioned Jaylen Brown's being targeted by several top 10 teams, even Derek White for the Celtics. Teams like the Celtics, I won't say the Nets as much, but like the Celtics and others in the East that are going to be aggressive this trade period around the draft.
Yeah, I mean, the big ESPN reporters have been talking for weeks now about how much chatter there's been, and there has already been a lot of moves made, not just chatter. So I expect more of that within the next, 12 to 24 hours, not only because of the number of players that are around, but I think it's also in part because of this second apron, because of, teams wanting to avoid this, teams trying to navigate themselves, not just this year, but moving forward. We've talked about this, how the Thunder have created this model where you can be both a championship team, have flexibility in the draft, and have flexibility with building your roster, not even being a tax team. So if they can do that, why can't we? Is essentially what they're saying, and I think that's the model teams will try, maybe not succeed at following, but will try to.
Well, I'm curious, one of those teams, your Washington Wizards, who made I would say a good trade with CJ McCollum and Jordan Poole going to New Orleans here, but essentially opens up $100 million in cap space for Washington, but it doesn't seem like they can actually utilize that in free agency because there are no free agents.
Yeah, Aaron Wiggins of the Thunder said in his speech when they won the championship that they used to be kind of the bottom dwellers and people would make fun of them because they were the black hole. That's what the Wizards are right now. They're the black hole. They're taking on Chris Middleton. They're taking on CJ McCollum. They had Kyle Kuzma. They had Jordan Poole. It feels like they might not have a vision, but that's kind of where they are and what they're trying to build. They're trying to be like OKC, and their general manager, Will Dawkins, is a former executive with the Thunder. I think what they're looking at is we can, build our roster now, get some flexibility, and who knows what happens down the line. It's a long process.
Well, interesting because as we talk about trades, free agency does get started June 30th, and we've already seen some moves being made to lock in potential free agents. Kyrie Irving inked a 3-year, $119 million contract to stay with the Mavs. Also, Fred VanVleet, one of the higher names also on that free agent market, has now signed a 2-year, $50 million contract to stay with the Houston Rockets. What are your thoughts on free agency? Is free agency, in a sense, dead and not nearly as viable of an option to build a team, especially given the aprons and salary caps?
Yeah, maybe dead isn't the term, but it's definitely not as lively as it was back in the LeBron James decision days, right? It's developed with the way that the CBA has worked with these aprons, with how teams and players have been empowered. Trades are easier, or at least trade demands are more common nowadays. There are still players that are going to be available in free agency. We saw Paul George, for what it's worth, last year. We saw, Fred VanVleet, like you said, a couple of years ago. I think there will still be those, maybe 1-2-time All-Stars there, but we are going to see more of these, re-signs happening and then kind of trades before players are free agents. Like KD, he was traded to the Rockets, and then he's probably going to sign an extension for them. That's how I see kind of what the pseudo free agency is nowadays.
Given all of this, how do you sort of expect the draft to play tonight in terms of trades and acquisitions, and sort of where do you see a couple teams moving forward the next couple days?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot that's going to happen. I'd be very shocked if there wasn't a lot of movement, even at the top. Not necessarily at 1 and 2, but obviously they all say it's where number 3 is where it all starts. Do my Wizards move up? That could be, something because of teams wanting potentially to get Ace Bailey or wanting to get Fears and grab and, competing with one another. I expect there to be a lot of moves, whether from Washington, New Orleans, or New Jersey, or Brooklyn.
Or even OKC.
Or the Sixers as well.
Or the Sixers, yeah. OKC with their
that number 3 pick.
And the Thunder have 20 draft picks over the next 6 years, which will be crazy. Colin Salau, Colin, thank you so much. And coming up next, everyone, on Front Office Sports Today, NBA great John Salley going to join me and Renee to talk about the Lakers and tonight's NBA draft. Don't go anywhere.
Just seemed like a salary dump, and that's what the shocking part of it is. But also, let's take a look at this. From a Giants perspective, they have money to spend. People weren't taking their money. Now that they hit the trade market, and quite frankly, I did thought they got a steal. You're talking about a guy that should be good in the major leagues for the next 7 to 8 years in his prime, and the going rate of a salary for a great baseball player from the free agent market, it's $300+ million. That's what San Francisco made out well.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
What do you make of this price tag here, reportedly, of $1.7 billion for a club that right now technically doesn't even have a home ballpark?
We don't see a lot of teams sold in Major League Baseball. I mean, if you go back to 2020, Steve Cohen bought the New York Mets for $2.4 billion. The only team sold since then was the Orioles last year, also for around $1.7 billion.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
It was the first time, I think, in Dodgers history that the ballpark was full in the first inning. Everybody was there to see Shohei Ohtani throw his first pitch as a Dodger, and I had mixed emotions about this for a few reasons. Number one, it was a reminder of, wow, this is so crazy, right? You're watching him hit 98, 99, even 100 on the radar gun going, this guy's not human. Nobody should be able to be this good of a hitter and this good of a pitcher.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I can't even believe I'm saying pitcher's battle and using the words Patrick Corbin. But can I tell you, Scotty, he's a different guy. He's a totally different guy with the Rangers than we've seen.
I say this all the time. Don't worry about the first 5 innings. Like, don't even watch the first 5 innings in Texas Ranger games. Because for whatever reason, there's a ton of runs scored in the first 5, and then it just stops. It just stops.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington. I'm Baker Machado, and Dallas is on the clock. We're just a few hours away from the NBA draft officially kicking off. So will we get some fireworks today? Well, to get some insight into that and other news around the NBA, let's bring in former NBA great John Salley, who's joining us from California. John, good to see you.
Nice seeing you. Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about the NBA draft. Of course, it doesn't look like there's going to be any surprise with the number 1 pick in Cooper Flagg. But I guess the big question here is, what does he bring Dallas, not just on the court, but maybe as a business, also for a city that's lacking one after the Luka trade?
I think he brings hope. People would literally seem like they wanted to burn Dallas down when Luka left. And I think, it was the point where, I mean, Luka was crying when he came back, and they were just going crazy after Nico. And then when they get the number one pick, people don't dislike Nico anymore, because now they're about to get this kid who, one is in the ACC, go ACC, and two, they're getting an American-born, brand new, always in shape, should have won the championship mentality. We'll get him a chip here. They have their look, they have their ability to build on top of that. I just know it's going to turn the world around.
Yeah, and I'm curious, John, especially given the draft projections. I know we talked about it here on the show. A player like Ace Bailey, who's projected to go 3rd overall, that declined and decided not to go on his visit with the Sixers or any team for that matter. As someone that was drafted in the 1st round back in 1986, so just a couple months ago, not too long ago, when you look at the evolution of the draft process for players, you yourself experienced what some might say a draft slide. How do you think the way that players have more say or more comfortable even saying, no, I'm not going, impacts the draft projections and just the overall process?
Well, when I was coming out in the 80s, you used to look forward to getting drafted. That was the thing. I had 37 people at the draft, and this is the truth. All the general managers lie. All the general managers lie. They your whole life of playing basketball is to get to this level, and they're lying and playing with you. And you know how people go, hey, you're really good here, you're great in the community, la 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 la, but we're going to trade you for a guy I think can do better than you. Red Auerbach told me I was going to be his first pick, and he took Len Bias, which was a better pick, right? And God rest his soul. But every team before Detroit that took me at number 11 got the business every time I was put on court. The difference with kids now is they have NIL deals. You're not going to the pros to make money. So if money isn't a motivator, then the only other motivation would be somebody's going to take me. And who I go to, I'm going to already make money because I might have residual or have something left with my NAI deal. But I came in the NBA, I had 2 quarters and a nickel. These guys come into the NBA, they own 2 quarter horses and a nickel. So I'm saying they got big money. So it's a different motivation. I was doing it with the unbelievable premise or lie or whatever, to get my family better. These kids, it's a different world now. So I don't think they have to, too. And that not Deion Sanders, that Shedeur Sanders mentality, hey, you guys have seen me before. I'm not going to sit there and have you critique too deeply. Now, let me say this. I did go to visit Chicago, and it was kind of demeaning because it was the 3rd visit they made me come to, and they had me standing there in my underwears turning in a circle because I'm looking like a thoroughbred. He's flat-footed, he's bow-legged, his body limps to the side, his hip, I was like, man, it was demeaning, but that's why I played the way I did when I played against Chicago. All right.
John, you were talking about your time with the Pistons, but another team you played for, the Los Angeles Lakers. I got to get your take on the $10 billion valuation of this team going from the Buses to Mark Walter, who owns the Dodgers. Just what's your thoughts, not just on this incredible deal, but what does Mark Walter now bring the Lakers from this team that you used to be a part of?
Well, let me just say this. It's never what you're worth, it's what you negotiate. $10 billion is a lot, but as I understand, only Jeannie and one of her brothers are staying on to still run things as it's run. But the mentality, because, they have sometimes a way of not spending a lot of their money. The way he treats the Dodgers, if he treats the Lakers like that, that team would be stacked up with athletes.
Yeah, final 30 seconds here for you. As a four-time NBA champ and the first NBA player to win 3 different titles with 3 different teams, got to get your take on the Oklahoma City Thunder winning their first ever title since relocating. And, of course, the unfortunate news around Tyrese Halliburton and just your overall takeaways from that NBA Finals.
My takeaway is I picked them. I was on Vlad TV. You can check it. I said they're going to win in 7. He couldn't believe I said that. They won in 7. I noticed something. Everybody that wears the number 0 got hurt today, hurt this year. Had some problems. Tatum, Halliburton, Lillard. I wouldn't wear that number because I'm super superstitious. But I'll stay with the Deuces. But I'm really proud of those guys and thankful. Even the way they acted when they won the championship, when one guy was getting too over excited, Caruso was like, stop. Like, that's not who we are. We're not just all over the place. And they always reeled themselves in, which was crazy for such a young team. And now we cannot blame anything stupid or anything that wasn't supposed to happen on age, because they prove age is nothing but a number.
That, and they don't even know how to open champagne bottles, which is also how young they are. You know,
you do it with a knife, right? You do it. What the hell?
Do it with a knife. Exactly. NBA legend John Sally. John, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, you guys keep going, and young lady, keep pushing. You guys are amazing.
Thank you so much, John. All right, don't go anywhere, guys. We got a lot more front office sports today coming your way right after this quick break.
On June 25th at 7:30 p.m., ditch the guesswork. Ben Stevens, Kevin Walsh, James Young, and Tom Vecchio have your NBA draft betting coverage pick by pick, bet by bet, all night long. We got all the insights and expert analysis, because betting blind isn't a strategy. Coverage starts at 7:30 p.m. on June 25th, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Dialing it back to his old days with St. Louis and Arizona. Buy or sell, Goldie will finish top 7 in fantasy first baseman.
No, I'm going to say no. I think he'll fall off. Older player here, he'll be top 10, but not top 7 here. Top 10, I would say, yeah, I'd buy it. Top 7, I'm going to say no here. I think he'll put up decent numbers here. Not as good as he was. I don't think he's going to bat 340, 350 all year long.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on
Every 5 days, it's really exciting when Skeens pitches, and it's terrible watching him pitch because every time he pitches, they don't score.
Having him hit the lineup probably would actually help when he pitches. There's no way to do it because you can't, but yeah, it's beyond frustrating. And the numbers will tell you, the books have adjusted.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington. I'm Baker Machado, and ESPN and the Premier Lacrosse League have agreed to a new 5-year broadcast deal that Renee will also see the worldwide leader take an equity stake in this league as well. So could this be the start of seeing more broadcast partners do the same thing? Well, for that, let's bring in our tuned-in newsletter writer. The great Mike McCarthy joins us now. Mike, good to see you. So tell us a little bit more about this deal, and do we know how much of an equity stake ESPN is taking here?
Well, it's a fascinating trend that's happening here, Baker, where sports networks and leagues, which used to be just like customer, partners relationship, are becoming real financial partners. Not just ESPN taking an equity stake in PLL, but TNT Sports has an equity stake in the new unrivaled 3-on-3 women's basketball league, and Fox owns 50% of the United Football League.
Yeah.
So it's a real trend that we're seeing. CNBC puts the ownership stake for ESPN and the PLL at about 3%.
Wow. And with this 5-year media rights deal does go across ESPN platforms for PLL and WLL. So that's the Women's Lacrosse League games as well. Their drafts, their games, their all-star games, their playoffs and championships. But the common thread that you just mentioned, Mike, is this is another league that is not your typical major league, an emerging league, as you allude to with the others as well. Do you think that's also part of where we're going to see more networks looking to invest in leagues they're broadcasting that are those rising, innovative, growing leagues?
Yeah, it's a great point, Renee. Startup leagues are a perfect way to experiment like this because it's a win-win, right? If you're ESPN and the PLL takes off, you actually get some financial compensation for the growth of this league, right? And if you're PLL and you get this ownership stake with ESPN, you get Insta credit on Madison Avenue. The sponsors are going to take you more seriously. And you know that they're going to give you coverage because they're incentivized to do so.
Yeah, and Mike, to that point, what does ESPN get in this besides maybe just the rights? I guess my point is this why we see the NFL and ESPN and so much talk about ESPN acquiring NFL media? So that way it helps them with the rights down the line.
Yeah, it helps them with the rights. It gives them protection should the rights come up. It gives them protection if a giant streamer comes along and tries to take the rights away. And as you say, it makes them more than just a middleman. You know what I mean? ESPN and the networks are tired of just being middlemen with all the equity flowing either really to the leagues or to the players. They're just a pass through. So if you're ESPN and you see the cable bundle shrinking and you're like, all right, what's next for us? It's like, well, let's get some ownership.
Yeah, and I'm also interested to know your thoughts on how this makes sense for the PLL as it's going to be rolling out starting in the 2026 season for this league that was debuted back in 2019 and continues to grow. Why does this partnership make most sense for them as we get into this final minute, Mike?
Well, I think if you're a PLL, you're looking at ESPN, you're saying this is the worldwide leader in sports, right? Although they hate that nickname, Renee, and
Yes.
I wouldn't use it lightly, but they are it. If you want to get coverage, if you want to get notoriety in sports, ESPN is the way to do it. I take the NHL as a perfect example. When the NHL went off ESPN stopped covering the league almost virtually. I mean, occasionally you'd see Barry Melrose pop up, like for witness protection or something, but basically they stopped covering the league. So if you are in business with ESPN, you are going to get coverage, you are going to get headlines, you are going to get channels that are going to show your matches.
It is interesting, guys. With media deals, we're not only seeing TV deals, but now we're seeing partnerships and equity and investment. So also a change in the landscape around that, too.
And of course, for our viewers, be sure to subscribe to Mike's Tuned In newsletter for all things sports media. Mike McCarthy, thank you so much for joining us. And let's see what's happening at the FOS Water Cooler. Well, 40 years after Michael Jordan laced up his first pair of Air Jordans, Jordan Brand dropped its first look of the all-new Air Jordan 40, which pays homage to the legacy of that classic sneaker. Now, these are priced at $200, and they're available July 12th at jordan.com and select retailers. Renee, so far, what do you think? We got the classic, the blue suede, and the dusty rose.
I love that Michael Jordan's been so active, from broadcasting to, of course, the Air Jordans. And also, this has inspirations from 7 other Air Jordans in it, from the tongue to the make of it to just so many other components of the sneaker. So it's not only honoring the 40 years, but honoring the previous Air Jordans. And I love this. I think also because it's got some technological advancements that'll allow athletes that wear them to be more explosive and be more safe and protected. So weighing in the history of Air Jordans, also the component of adding some extra technology, and it just looks great. So Michael Jordan, by no surprise, got it right with the Air Jordan 40.
Yeah, 9 different sort of colors that you'll be able to get. The first one, the classic colors are just black and white, but either way, still really cool. I think I'd pay $200 for these, by the way. I might be wearing these next month.
That's not a bad deal at all. And it's, listen, as he says, built by a storied legacy, built for the next generation of greatness, and we should also go get some Air Jordans.
Amen. All right, coming up, guys, on FOS tomorrow, we're going to recap all the drama and all the moves from the NBA draft. Did your team win it? We'll find out. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.